Have you noticed? Have you ever found yourself standing in the middle of a supermarket aisle, staring at a price tag, and wondering when everything got so expensive? It's a common experience these days, and you're not alone in feeling this way. Do you remember when a gallon of gas cost much less? It wasn't that long ago when filling up your tank didn't feel like such a financial burden. Those were the days when a road trip was an affordable adventure, not a luxury. Or when you could buy a whole cart of groceries for a fraction of what it costs today. Back then, a trip to the grocery store didn't require meticulous budgeting or cutting back on other expenses. You could fill your cart with all the essentials and still have money left over for a treat or two. We've all noticed that prices seem to keep going up. It's a gradual process, but over time the impact is undeniable. Each year it feels like our money buys less and less and the cost of living continues to rise. A loaf of bread, a gallon of milk, even a cup of coffee, it all adds up. These everyday items, once considered basic staples, now seem to come with a higher price tag each time we shop. It's a constant reminder of how inflation affects our daily lives. This steady increase in the prices of goods and services over time is what we call inflation. It's a complex economic phenomenon influenced by various factors, including supply and demand, production costs, and monetary policies. Understanding inflation is crucial because it affects our purchasing power and overall financial well-being. Remember when a movie ticket used to be a fun, affordable outing? Going to the movies was a simple pleasure that didn't break the bank. It was a chance to escape reality for a couple of hours and enjoy some entertainment with friends or family. Now, even grabbing popcorn and a soda can feel like a splurge. The cost of concessions has skyrocketed, making a night at the movies a more expensive endeavor. It's a stark contrast to the past when such outings were more accessible to everyone. It's not just entertainment either. The rising costs extend to various aspects of our lives, from dining out to attending concerts and sporting events. What used to be occasional treats are now becoming less frequent due to their higher prices. That weekly grocery bill seems to get bigger and bigger even if you're buying the same things. It's a frustrating reality for many households, as they struggle to balance their budgets and make ends meet. The rising cost of living is a challenge that affects us all. These everyday examples show how inflation affects our lives. From the grocery store to the gas pump, from entertainment to dining out, the impact of rising prices is felt in every corner of our daily routines. It's a reminder of the importance of financial planning and budgeting. It's a fact of life in most economies around the world. Inflation is not limited to one country or region. It's a global phenomenon. Different countries experience varying rates of inflation, influenced by their unique economic conditions and policies. While a small amount of inflation is normal, when prices rise too quickly, it can become a problem. Rapid inflation can erode purchasing power, making it difficult for people to afford basic necessities. It can also create uncertainty in the economy, affecting businesses and consumers alike. That's why it's important to understand what inflation is, what causes it, and what you can do to protect yourself from its impact. By staying informed and making smart financial decisions, you can better navigate the challenges of rising prices and maintain your financial stability. Simply put, inflation is when the prices of goods and services increase over time. This phenomenon affects everything from the cost of groceries to the price of a movie ticket. It's a gradual process that can sometimes go unnoticed until it starts to impact your daily life significantly. This means that the purchasing power of your money decreases. In other words, the same amount of money buys you less today than it did yesterday. This can be particularly challenging for people on fixed incomes, as their money doesn't stretch as far as it used to. Imagine going to the store and realizing that the same amount of cash that bought you a full cart of groceries last year now only fills half the cart. This is a direct result of inflation, and it can be quite a shock. Imagine you have $1 today. You could buy a candy bar with it. But next year that same dollar might only buy you half a candy bar because of inflation. This simple example illustrates how inflation erodes the value of money over time. This is why it's important to understand inflation and how it affects your purchasing power. If you don't account for inflation in your financial planning, you might find yourself struggling to keep up with rising costs. Inflation is usually measured by tracking the price changes of a basket of commonly purchased goods and services. This basket includes items like food, clothing, housing, and transportation. By monitoring these prices, economists can get a sense of how much inflation is occurring. This is called the Consumer Price Index, or CPI. The CPI is a crucial tool used by governments and financial institutions to gauge the rate of inflation. When the CPI goes up, it means that, on average, prices are rising. The CPI is not just a number, it has real-world implications. For instance, it can influence interest rates, wages, and even social security benefits. When the CPI rises, it often leads to adjustments in these areas to help people cope with the higher cost of living. We can see the effects of inflation by comparing prices from different years. For example, the cost of a gallon of milk or a loaf of bread today is likely higher than it was a decade ago. These comparisons help us understand how inflation impacts our daily lives. By keeping an eye on inflation and understanding its effects, you can make more informed financial decisions. Whether it's saving for the future or budgeting for everyday expenses, being aware of inflation helps you stay ahead of the curve. One of the main causes of inflation is an increase in the money supply. When the government prints too much money, it can lead to inflation. Think of it like this. If everyone suddenly has more money, they'll be competing to buy the same amount of goods and services. This increased demand can drive prices up, leading to inflation. It's like when a rare collectible becomes widely available. Suddenly, everyone wants it, and the price skyrockets. The same principle applies to money. When there's too much of it in circulation, it loses its value and things cost more. Remember the empty store shelves during the pandemic? That's a prime example of how supply chain disruptions can fuel inflation. When there are problems with the production, transportation, or distribution of goods, it can lead to shortages and higher prices. Imagine a sudden shortage of computer chips. Since these chips are essential for making everything from cars to smartphones, the limited supply drives up the cost of production for these goods. Manufacturers then pass these increased costs on to consumers in the form of higher prices. Section 5. The rising cost of making things, from raw materials to labor. Another factor that contributes to inflation is the rising cost of production. This can be due to several reasons, such as an increase in the price of raw materials, higher wages for workers, or increased transportation costs. For example, if the price of oil goes up, it becomes more expensive to transport goods. This increased transportation cost gets passed along the supply chain, ultimately leading to higher prices for consumers. Similarly, if workers demand higher wages, businesses may raise prices to cover these costs. Section 6. Inflation's impact. Feeling the pinch in your wallet. Inflation can have a significant impact on our daily lives. When prices rise, our money doesn't go as far. This means we might have to cut back on spending, dip into our savings, or even take on additional debt to maintain our standard of living. For people on fixed incomes like retirees, inflation can be particularly challenging. Their income stays the same, but their expenses keep increasing. Inflation can also erode the value of our savings if the interest rates on our savings accounts are lower than the rate of inflation. Section 7. Fighting back. How governments and central banks tackle inflation. Governments and central banks play a crucial role in managing inflation. They employ a variety of strategies to ensure that inflation remains within a target range, which is essential for economic stability. Without these measures, unchecked inflation can erode purchasing power, distort spending and saving decisions, and ultimately lead to economic instability. One of the primary tools they use is monetary policy. This involves managing the supply of money and the cost of borrowing money, which can influence overall economic activity. By adjusting these levers, central banks can either stimulate the economy or cool it down, depending on the current economic conditions. In the United States, the Federal Reserve, or Fed, is responsible for setting monetary policy. The Fed's decisions are closely watched by financial markets and can have significant impacts on the global economy. The Fed's dual mandate is to promote maximum employment and stable prices, which often involves a delicate balancing act. The Fed can influence interest rates, which can affect borrowing and spending. Lower interest rates make borrowing cheaper, encouraging businesses to invest and consumers to spend. Conversely, higher interest rates make borrowing more expensive, which can slow down economic activity. When inflation is high, the Fed might raise interest rates to slow down the economy and bring inflation under control. This is because higher interest rates can reduce consumer spending and business investment, which in turn can help to reduce the upward pressure on prices. Higher interest rates make it more expensive to borrow money, which can discourage spending and investment. This can lead to a reduction in demand for goods and services, which can help to bring down inflation. However, this approach can also slow economic growth and increase unemployment, so it must be used carefully. This slowdown in economic activity can help to curb inflation. By carefully managing interest rates and other monetary policy tools, central banks aim to maintain a balance between controlling inflation and supporting economic growth. This ongoing effort is crucial for ensuring long-term economic stability and prosperity. Section 8. Investing your way out. Don't let inflation erode your savings. So, how can you protect your hard-earned money from being eaten away by inflation? One of the best ways is to invest your money wisely. Investing can help your money grow at a rate that outpaces inflation. Consider investing in assets like stocks, bonds, or real estate. These investments have the potential to generate returns that are higher than the rate of inflation, helping to preserve and grow your purchasing power over time. Section 9. Boost your income, outpace inflation. Take control of your financial future. Another important strategy for combating inflation is to increase your income. This could involve negotiating a raise at your current job, finding a higher-paying position, or starting a side hustle. By increasing your income, you can stay ahead of rising prices and maintain your standard of living. Remember, tackling inflation is a marathon, not a sprint. By taking proactive steps to invest your money and grow your income, you can weather the storm of inflation and secure your financial future.